Science fiction likes to focus on a few big ticket technologies. Now, one of them is artificial intelligence. You can talk about virtual realities, you can talk about robots and human immortality, but the most classic one is faster than light space travel. And that's because space is really cool. We all like the idea of colonizing multiple planets and encountering aliens and exploring and terraforming planets and this big galactic-wide empire. That's all awesome, unless you're some kind of flat earther or something. And lots of science fiction fixates on this, and they discuss this. And they all try to tackle the problem slightly differently, because as far as we know, faster than light travel is not possible. Scientists are working actually rather hard to try and do this, to figure this out, to make it a technology. And you've probably heard of things like the Alcubierre drive and wormholes and all that. I'm not here today to discuss a theoretical way that maybe faster than light travel can actually work. I'm going to talk about the questions that a story has to answer in order to include faster than light travel. And you may think that you can just skip these things, that you don't need to answer them because, oh, it's a soft sci-fi setting. Oh, it's a space opera. Oh, you just make these assumptions. Oh, whatever. You might think that you can get away from these questions, but you really can't. And people will notice if the logic of the world changes because, say, new writers wrote the next movie and they changed their minds about something. Now, you may not believe me. You may think that rules are for suckers. You may think that it's the far future, man. You can have whatever you want. It's the future. It's technology. Don't you know that sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic? Alright, bozo, I got a question for you. Me and you are at war. I strap a faster-than-light engine onto my missile, and I shoot it at your face. Do you see it coming before it hits you? Now, all conventional wisdom says, oh yeah, totally, you can obviously see a weapon coming at you. The problem is that missile is going faster than light. It's going to emit light when I fire it at you, but it will reach you before the light reaches you. Which means you will just die. There is no setting that I know of that uses that logic. They all have different workarounds. They have different nuances in how these things work. Because to have that kind of setting where you die before you can react, before you know that you're supposed to react, you just can't tell a story like that. Because the only thing you could do is obliterate everything you see that could possibly attack you. Because otherwise you just die to a faster than light missile. So when you get into settings like Star Wars, Star Trek, Doctor Who, Warhammer 40k, Halo, Mass Effect, all these things, none of them actually have in-universe faster than light. I think maybe the Dune series screws it all up, but they can't really shoot missiles as far as I'm aware because they're the Dune version of astropaths. Sorry, I've been reading a lot of 40k lately. And 40k too, you're screwing with the warp to go faster than light. But basically they can't navigate a weapon at faster than light speeds. So that's one of the ways that Frank Herbert brought the scale of combat down to something manageable. But basically you need to have an explanation with how faster than light works that explains why people can react to missiles that are strapped onto FTL engines. There is a very simple solution where you can just say, oh, well, we have Ansible communication, which you may have heard from, say, Ender's Game. That just allows instantaneous communication. Through that technology, you can see something coming at you faster than light, which means that you can't see it, but you can detect it. And that solves that problem of just obliterate everyone. There is another solution, which if a writer is not very good at science, I actually recommend this solution to just not mess with these things, is increase the speed of light. Make the speed of light 100 times faster. Uh, you won't have to deal with relativity. There's no time dilation. You can just say that, no, because of the way these things work, this and the other thing, electromagnetics still work the same. It's just that light goes faster. Don't worry about it. On the scale of a planet, light speed's instantaneous anyways. And if you just make it 100 times faster, you just avoid relativity. And that's one of the big things about why people want to use faster than light systems, like wormholes and hyperspace and all this. Is because relativity will break your brain, and even if it doesn't break your brain, you the author, it's going to confuse the crap out of your readers. There's the movie Interstellar, tried to use relativity, because they went very early to a planet that was like orbiting a black hole, and they brought up how the flow of time is different because of the huge warp of gravity, and that's technically correct. But these were supposed to be smart scientists that went to that planet. And they're looking for like a place to bring humanity and all that. But I, in the movie theater, pieced together instantaneously that the signal they had gotten from this planet 40 years ago, on the surface, a couple days, maybe a couple hours had passed. Which means that the planet had only been scouted for like a day, and they were going to gamble humanity's future on, less than 24 hours of surveillance, of looking at a planet? That was obviously a disaster. I'm talking about the water planet where they get hit by the tsunamis. It was just obviously idiotic to do that. But that was a writer trying to accurately make use of relativity, but failing to write a properly intelligent cast of characters. So I really do recommend that you use, if you're a writer, you use a system that avoids relativity. I think the only story I can think of that I like that used relativity was also about avoiding it, and that would be Joe Haldeman's The Forever War. Because even with them, they use star-to-star teleportations, basically, as I recall. And they always have the option of just flying back to Earth with, fusion drives or whatever that powers their ship, and they just speed up to 99.9999% speed of light. But the problem is, because they aren't going faster than light, if they're in normal space, they will end up back on Earth like tens of thousands of years later and not recognize it anymore. And that's part of the great allegory of the Vietnam War, which, by the way, go read The Forever War by Joe Haldeman. It's one of the best books out there on science fiction, in my opinion. But you got to avoid relativity. It doesn't make sense. No one wants that in a story. Coming back to my questions, the questions I don't really intend to answer, because there are typically multiple ways to answer them. You just can't change them. Case in point, how much kinetic energy does a ship going faster than light have? If you're in hyperspace, probably not much. Probably like a normal amount of kinetic energy, as though you're, moseying about, sublight space like normal. That's the beauty of having a different dimension for travel, where you can just get from point A to point B faster. Like think about traveling through the Nether in Minecraft if you're a video game nerd, or at least watch streamers of it. That means that on impact, the ship is just, you're just crashing a ship into something. If you're writing the Star Wars sequels, though, all of a sudden the rules of the universe change, and everyone with a hyperspace drive is driving around a weapon of mass destruction, and one little ship can blow up a capital ship, apparently. Because by going faster than light, don't you know, I heard this in physics class. When you go to the speed of light, you gain more mass. Aren't I smart, says the writer. You know what? It's okay if you want a setting where faster than light travel means that anyone with an FTL engine can destroy a planet. But you're not going to have interplanetary civilization. You're going to have hidden habitats trying to eke out a living without ever being spotted. You're going to have submarine warfare, which you can write a really good story about that. No matter how you answer these questions, you can write a good story about it. You can construct a good story. You just can't change your answers. And you can't disregard the consequences of these choices. You can't have a big, huge, happy-go-lucky intergalactic federation if every smuggler can just hit the gas really hard and blow up a planet. Now, not all these questions are particularly destructive. Sometimes you just need to answer them so that people understand what's going on, such as where can you enter faster than light? Battlestar Galactica really ran afoul of this. In Season 1, they had to do this entire plot in order to get the defense network down so that they could invade the planet. And then fast forward a couple seasons, and it turns out that they can warp into atmosphere, and there being mass at the warp-in location doesn't matter, apparently, because they had this technology the whole time. Why do they need to get the defense network down? Who knows? The writers changed. They changed the answers to these questions. Because originally they said, you can go faster than light in deep space. And then they changed it to anywhere. And that really hurt the story. More obviously, more restrictively, you get things like Mass Effect, where can you go faster than light? At the relays, and only at the relays, and you end up with these, interstellar choke points that governments control and such, instead of, any bloke with a ship can just bounce around. That's another form of doing it. But you can't set up and say, oh, you need a relay to open the warp gate for you so you can get from one relay to another, and then just change that and go, oh, we don't have to worry about that anymore. It's not going to satisfy readers. It's not going to satisfy viewers. It's just a bad thing to do. And that is the kind of thing that causes a story to fall apart. Here's an easy question. Does it take fuel? I can't think of a series that doesn't ostensibly require fuel to go faster than light. Like even the infinite improbability device needs to be fueled. They just don't make a plot point of fueling it up particularly often. But theoretically they could, because it obviously takes energy. As they're, bouncing around between every possible improbable universe and occurrence. That gets you into questions of how long does it take to speed up? Do you need to accelerate into faster than light? The actual mechanics, because when you get into a ship-to-ship combat scene, or a runaway, or you're chasing someone, or I don't know, two characters are having a radio call before they blip off to faster than light space or something. There are lots of reasons that a ship will be going into faster than light during a scene. And you need to actually know, how long does that take? Do you need fuel? Do you need charge up? Do you have a rebound? Do you need tow ships to get into that? Does the ship have to be of a certain size to power it? You name it. But that's a really small quibbling thing that I think any science fiction author is just going to be so happy to answer, because, oh my god, do fantasy and science fiction writers love to make their details about their worlds. But there's a detail that everyone always ignores, pretty much, and that is planet-to-planet time dilation. Not every star is moving the same speed. Some of them are moving really fast. Like, really fast. There's no reason for a star to be standing still relative to other stars. But if you think of any setting, they're all at galactic rest with each other, because you can't actually have competitive civilizations where one has like 2 seconds for every second that the other civilization has. You add that up over, galactic time, biological, civilizational timescales, and one will have 1,000 years to the other's 500 years to develop, to prepare, to expand, to enhance their technology. You would directly end up with situations where the only competitive, the only powerful empires are passing the most seconds per second compared to whatever reference frame you have, because they'll just outstrip everyone else in development. Which I suppose could make for a really interesting sci-fi setting, where you basically have the technologically advanced planets where time is moving slower, where there's more time passing, and then you get these rural boony areas that are, at a completely different relativistic speed, and it takes 5 seconds on the Empire for 1 second to pass in the countryside, basically, and you can have that as an interesting explanation for why these people are more developed over here than over here. But I don't know if anyone's ever done that, because explaining that math to the reader and maintaining everything, maybe you could do that if you built a huge computer simulator of what you were trying to do and all the interstellar interactions and trying to track when, like, the trajectories that ships will have to take as they go from point to point and accelerate and catch up with things and match their speed to park on the planet and all that junk. Everyone kind of just ignores that, and you just go with it. And I personally recommend all planets are just magically traveling at the same seconds per second. But getting between planets and planets is pretty important, because you also need to know how fast are you going? Are you going 100 times faster than light? Because if you're only going 100 times faster than light, it will take you a year to get somewhere 100 light years from there. Are you going 1,000,000 times faster than light? Are you going instantaneous? Are you just going twice as fast? You need to actually know that, because the planets are in actual locations. You need to be able to map out how long it takes to get to places, because you can run into questions of, oh, we're under attack. We need help from our allies. We need friends. We need rescue. How long does that take to get? Maybe you have instantaneous communication and you can ring up, oh crap, send in the space police. Well, how long does it take the space police to get to you? Now, you crash out of FTL halfway between stars, you're in the middle of nothing being chased by pirates. How long does it take for you to get help? 6 months. If it's a 6 month journey from star to star and you have instantaneous phone calls, it's still going to take 3 months for someone to come rescue you. Or you're significantly faster and they can get to you in 30 seconds because it was a 1 minute trip. These questions need to be answered, because you can't put a cast of characters in danger without the context of the danger. That's like saying a burglar is breaking into my house. I just called the police. How long does it take for the police to show up? Well, New York City, in the nice part of town, 5 to 10 minutes maybe? Out in the middle of nowhere, West Virginia? 30 minutes maybe? The reader needs to know what the options available to the characters are, and that includes, well, what can I do to get help? And if the FTL is just hand-waved as, oh, you just hit the gas and you go, you still need to know how long does it take to get help. Because that is a common thing that comes up, where they put out a distress beacon and a ship may just show up when the plot demands it. That's cheating. Now, as per my last video, you may find yourself asking, James, what is this? What specific book are you talking about right now? And once again, I'm doing some of the self-shill right here. This is Ship of Fools. This is my far future science fiction book about a group of refugees stranded on a ship that doesn't have faster than light, and they've put out the distress call to get help, but they have to stay hidden for 1 month, 3 months, 6 months, a year maybe, because that's how long it takes to get from planet to planet in this story. I'm going to write a lot more stories in this timeline, this world, this set of faster than light rules. Because in my opinion, I have pieced together the best, narratively best, answers to these questions. Notably, like a lot of other stories, I use a separate dimension where things are closer together. Side note, in my opinion, wormholes really aren't faster than light. They're more like moving things closer together. So the ships are always going sub-light speed. It's just closer to get from place to place. You don't have to go 1,000 light years. It's, half a light year to the wormhole, half a light year on the other side. But in Ship of Fools here, faster than light can only be entered at a point of significantly high gravity because I do like the choke points that can be created from, from like Mass Effect relays and static wormholes and all that stuff. But I wanted it to be a bit more generic, because I didn't want that spooky precursor race or anything like that. So I set it up such that you need the force of gravity pulling on you. So when you use the special fuel, you get slingshotted into a different dimension at speeds based on the gravity you're experiencing. Most ships normally use gas giants because they're safe, they can be colonized, they've got moons, you can get space stations right there. It's doable, but gas giants are slow. The next step up would be to slingshot off of a star, but stars are hot and they will damage ships. It's really hard to get a human-carrying ship to launch off of a star. And if you're really lucky and you find this astronomical fluke where you can get a station where humans are able to habitate and protect it, let's call, near a black hole, that is the fastest thing to do. And you can't put a human through a black hole's gravity, but you can sling rocks. It's like interstellar artillery. And that creates the tiers of speed of importance of choke points and travel and back and forth, because you end up needing to basically build space stations and colonies around these mass points that then need to be defended so that you can be near habitable planets. And I think it just works really well. There's like 100-to-1 time save in distances. The planets that work for FTL are much more restricted from simply finding planets that humans can colonize. I think it opens up a lot of narrative potential. And it doesn't have planet busters, except for black hole asteroids, and that's why they're super plot critical. You can see attacks coming through the faster than light dimension. Ships aren't actually going that fast kinetically speaking. It's sort of like Wormhole, where points are just closer together. You got fuel, because, you got to have deep space oil operations. We all understand the importance of protecting your oil fields, don't we? I think it works great. I had a lot of fun writing Ship of Fools, and that's all just background filler that I'm using to set up this show, because the book is mostly about the politics of despair and trusting the captain in charge and democracy and mutiny and all that good stuff. So if I've interested you at all, please check out Ship of Fools sometime. Or just take these notes with you the next time you see a reboot, a sequel, an extension of a series, and something feels weird, and you start asking yourself, wait, do the previous actions make sense anymore? If they could do that, why couldn't they do that earlier? And it's because you have these questions here. These questions must remain the same for the series to make sense, because they are very important to the logic of character choices. And so that's all I have for you today. This has been a bit of a long rant. Sorry about that. I hope you were entertained. Please drop a like, drop a sub, hit the bell, and let me know what you think was the biggest screw up in science fiction of changing one of these faster than light rules. Let me know in the comments below. Till then, cheers. Oh, and if you want to join the book club, we're reading Foundation by Isaac Asimov. I'll probably have something to say about how space travel works in that. There should be a link to the Gilded that you can join if you want to read along with us and have some good conversations about good literature. Link in the description. Hope to see you there. Cheers.